Syncopation. What is it? Well, basically it's where accented notes are misplaced either side of the beat, creating some sort of a distinctive groove. Now, although the actual rhythm patterns, the actual note patterns are quite hard to explain in a mathematical sense, but when I actually play the riff and you'll see me demonstrate it, you'll be able to know exactly, you'll be able to listen to the riff and you'll be able to see what I'm talking about. Okay, so put the metronome on. So it's basically like, now that is a classic example where it's pretty similar to the likes of Creeping Death, Master of Puppets, and even a very similar kind of song in the shape of Overkill's Elimination. And in more traditional heavy metal terms, I would say certainly songs like 2 Minutes to Midnight by Iron Maiden. So that kind of like rhythmic groove is employed as a note pattern, to form the riff in each of those songs that I just mentioned. Okay, so like I say, is like, if I just nod in my head like that in a normal sort of 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then as I do this, I start to sing the dig it, 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 dig it. So notice where I say dig it, dig it, dig it, dig it, dig it. You know, it's like where my head goes backwards. So I accent the note on there. I accent the dig it. You know, sometimes. So basically, it's an offbeat sort of thing. It's like some of the notes are actually on the beat, but some of them are off the beat at the same time. So where you get some on and some off, it creates that sort of like distinctive groove. Now, syncopation is employed in many different forms. So you get so there are many different types of groove. There are many different kinds of things that you hear. Now, particularly in modern metal these days, where an awful lot of stuff is, like I say, mathematically all laid out in a very technical kind of manner. So it's extremely hard to know know where all the notes exactly are when it comes to looking at music in a written form or trying to explain it. It really is hard, even for the simpler riffs. But when you hear the riff and you play the riff, once you actually feel, because the idea is all about, because music is, to me, is really about feeling, particularly in old school genres like thrash. It's all about feeling, it's all about influence, it's all about, you know, what you sort of relate to and the kind of energy you feel with certain types of riff, with certain types of melody, with certain types of whatever it is, because music is meant to suit the expression of the mood. So if I set the metronome onto a slower beat here, I'll be able to play the riff in a slower form so that you'll be able to get a better familiarity on what I'm actually doing here. Okay, so we set this down to about 100 or something. Okay, this sort of, that'll do. Now, as I played it slower there, I'll use all down strokes, whereas when I play it faster, I'll use a combination of down and up strokes, and I'll show you how to do all that kind of stuff. Okay, so as you watch me play there, there's like certain accents where on and off the beat here or there, like, you know, so it forms the actual rhythm, it forms the actual groove, you know. It's kind of like but it's extremely hard to explain. But you just got to listen to it and you've got to feel it. Okay, so the actual riff, the main syncopated parts, is usually in groups of 3, and each 3 group actually fits into a whole measure of 4 beats on the regular timing. So it goes like this. Okay, so what you got here is you've got 4 groups like that all together, and then what you got as the actual dynamic on the end of the riff is chosen from the natural minor scale. And the additional note on the end there is the open E string, just 2 notes like that. So the fret spaces are open string, number 2, number 3, and then up on the A string it starts again with the open string, open A, into number 2, the same as a bottom string, and number 3 fret space. So 0, 2, 3, 0, 2, 3, and then back to the 0 on the bottom string twice. So in an alternate picking sort of form, where it's more like this here. Okay, and the actual picking pattern for the syncopation is down, up, down, down, up, down, 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 up, 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 down, up, down, up, down, down, up, down, down, up, down, up. That's the other way of explaining the actual syncopated groove there. And then alternate picking all the way through that. Okay, so playing the riff again on a slow beat and just like follow along with that one. I'll play it a few times for you and see if you can follow along to this. I'll play it alternate. Sorry. So hopefully you should be able to follow that one, and also to challenge you, to make it more challenging, I'll put it back onto the super fast beat. I'll put 206 I think. Now don't get straight into the fast one unless you're comfortable with it, but it can be there as a reference to what the actual, it's there as a yardstick to measure your progress by. So we'll just show you what the end result looks like once you finish your practicing. Excuse me. Okay, so there you have it. This is quite a long-winded lesson because it's quite a complicated form of rhythmic playing, but once you get it into your arsenal, you'll be able to do all sorts with it. And what I'm showing you here is just the basics to get you started. There are many other different patterns and all that sort of thing, and different forms of how this group, of how syncopation is made up. Because all it is just misplaced notes, and once you've had enough experience with rhythm guitar and whatnot, once you've heard enough bands and things like that, and you get to know your music pretty well, you'll be able to form pretty much your own. Just be creative and form your own kind of like rhythmic patterns. And also things like fusion jazz. There's an awful lot of things in there. Now, as you see, when I was playing the fast riff, it's like sometimes I'm nodding my head on the actual beat, and sometimes I'm going, as we're going din 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 din, so ding 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 ding, and sometimes I'm sort of like doing a halftime sort of feel there. So there's many different ways to sort of interpret the actual riff when you hear it. And of course, this goes for any drummers out there that are looking to sort of like advance into how to follow along sort of thing. Some drummers are very into the kind of like straight ahead thrash, or the traditional rock beat or whatever, the backbeat, or they might do the sort of like halftime sort of, massive groove beat, that sort of thing, and whatever else, but there's your syncopation, and I hope this lesson helps, and good luck with it all.